Welcome to this explainer. You know, we often picture ancient spiritual communities existing in this perfect, effortless harmony, right? Just monks meditating in total peace, entirely detached from the daily drama. But the reality? Human nature has literally always been messy. Today, we're diving into Volume 9 of the 10 Recitations Anaya. And listen, this isn't just some dry list of old rules. It's actually a foundational Buddhist text that reveals the absolute core precepts of honesty and harmony, and more importantly, how to practically defend them in real life. So it forces us to ask this really timeless question. What truly destroys a community? Is it outside forces and external enemies, or is it the words spoken right from within? Because as we're going to see today, the absolute greatest threat to any community's survival isn't a physical attack. It's the breakdown of trust. It's dishonesty, harsh speech, and malicious gossip. In this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly how ancient spiritual leaders figured this out and the absolutely fascinating steps they took to protect human relationships. Okay, let's dive right in with an incredible story straight from the source text. Picture this. There's this super boastful debater from South India who rolls into town. Get this. He's wearing a copper plate strapped to his stomach, and he's carrying a literal fire on his head. When people ask him, why? He claims his wisdom is so vast, he's actually terrified his belly will burst. And the fire? Well, that's to illuminate the darkness of the world's ignorance. Naturally, the townspeople challenge him to debate a monk named Hata. But Hata is absolutely terrified. On his way to the debate, he sees two rams fighting, then two bulls fighting, then two guys wrestling, and finally, a woman who drops and breaks her water pitcher. Hata sees all these totally normal everyday events and convinces himself they're terrible omens. He's convinced he's going to lose. So instead of just owning up to his stage fright, he lies. He tells the crowd, I'm feeling a little unwell. Let's debate tomorrow. But then, under the cover of night, Hata grabs his robes and literally flees the city. When the townspeople realize they've been completely tricked, they don't just mock Hata. Their trust in the entire monastic community, the Sangha, is completely shattered. The rumor spreads like wildfire. How can they even call themselves monks if they deliberately lie? Now, the Buddha's response to Hata's deception wasn't just a mild, hey, don't do that again. He established a strict precept, categorizing deliberate lying as a paki titya. In the text, this is defined as an offense of burning and obstruction. What that means is an intentional lie doesn't just, hurt your reputation. It is a literal roadblock. If you don't repent for it, it actively blocks your spiritual path. The text goes on to outline different severities of lying, but the core message is crystal clear. Honesty is the absolute bedrock of the precepts. Without it, the whole spiritual structure just collapses because the public trust is gone. But here's the thing. Harmony requires a lot more than just telling the truth. It requires paying really close attention to how we speak to one another. The text talks about this one situation where a group of monks, known as the Group of Six, were just constantly bickering. They were insulting each other's backgrounds, dragging up past mistakes, the whole 9 yards. It got so toxic that even monks who had nothing to do with it started taking sides. So, to stop this chaotic drama, the Buddha steps in with his profound parable about a black ox, and it's perfectly designed to show how our speech directly impacts the actual strength of the people around us. So in the Buddha's story, an owner makes this massive bet that his ox can pull a super heavy load up a steep hill. But when it's time to actually pull, the owner hits the ox with a stick and hurls insults at him, calling him Black Crooked Horn. Well, hearing this harsh mockery, the ox immediately loses all his strength, completely refuses to pull, and the owner loses a fortune. Later on, the ox actually speaks to the owner, it's a parable, right? And explains that the insults literally drained his power. He tells the owner, let's try this again, but this time use kind words. So the owner washes the ox, rubs oil on his horns, puts garlands on him, and calls him Great Auspicious Black Ox, with broad horns and great strength. Hearing this, the ox is completely energized. He easily pulls that heavy cart right up the hill and wins back triple the lost wealth. The owner of the ox was so overjoyed by this transformation that he recited this really beautiful verse. Soft words bring strength. This ox can pull heavy loads. I gain great wealth, body and mind find joy. Think about the profound implication of that for a second. Kindness and respectful speech, they aren't just about being polite. According to this ancient text, they are a source of actual, tangible power. When we speak to others with respect, we literally empower them to carry heavy loads, to overcome their obstacles. And when we insult them, we are actively robbing them of their strength. To protect this kind of empowering environment, the Buddha laid down some incredibly specific rules against mockery. He essentially forbade monks from using words with a despising heart. And the exhaustive list in the text is absolutely fascinating. You cannot mock someone based on their caste or their social status. You can't mock their profession or trade, whether they're a high-ranking noble or a bamboo weaver. You absolutely cannot bring up past crimes or physical illnesses like leprosy. You can't make fun of their physical appearance, and you can't even mock their mental afflictions or emotional struggles. These precepts acted as a radical protective shield for harmony. Honestly, this ancient monastic code functions perfectly as a modern framework for preventing discrimination and bullying today. Okay, but what happens when the attack on that harmony is totally covert? We're moving now to the third parable in the text, and this one addresses the most insidious threat of all, what they call the evil of two tongues. This refers to divisive speech and malicious gossip. The text outlines a scenario where certain monks were actively going back and forth between two different factions of the Sangha. They were whispering lies to each side about what the other was supposedly saying, actively trying to plant division and split the community right in two. And the text notes that once a community is fractured like this, it is incredibly difficult to repair.
To really break down the mechanics of how this destruction works, the Buddha told the story of the good fur lion and the good fang tiger. These two powerful beasts were absolute best friends. They lived in total harmony, shared their food, everything. But then, a two-tongued jackal comes along. He sees them and decides he wants to eat their leftovers. His divisive strategy is just brilliantly laid out here. Step 1, he ingratiates himself. He becomes their third companion, getting fat off their scraps. But then, to secure his spot, and maybe even eat them eventually, he executes step 2. He goes to the lion and falsely claims the tiger is secretly plotting against him, boasting about being superior. Step 3, he goes to the tiger and tells the exact same lie about the lion. And to make it really believable, the jackal tells them both, hey, when you see your friend blinking and licking your fur tomorrow, just know that's a bad omen of their betrayal. He sets the trap perfectly and just waits for them to destroy each other.
And this is exactly how two-tongued gossip operates. It manipulates your perception so much that even totally innocent actions suddenly look like betrayal. But the lion and the tiger do something absolutely crucial. Instead of just attacking, the tiger goes and directly confronts the lion. Did you say these things about me, he asks. The lion says no, and then asks the tiger the exact same thing. Simply through direct communication, they completely expose the jackal's lies. The text delivers this powerful realization. True friends are not separated by the words of others. Not believing the two-tongued, they reconcile in harmony. They verified the truth, rebuilt their unbreakable trust, and, in the story, they swiftly dealt with the jackal, restoring their peace. The Buddha follows up this parable with a pretty devastatingly simple observation. He asks, if animals suffer from divisive speech, how much more so humans? It perfectly bridges that gap between a simple animal parable and the deep psychological reality of human communities. Think about it. We are incredibly sensitive to social dynamics, right? To whispers, to rumors. If a totally fabricated rumor can almost cause two apex predators to tear each other apart, just imagine the quiet devastation it causes in our own human relationships, in our workplaces, or in our families. Which brings us to a synthesis of everything we've talked about today. When we really look at Volume 9 of the 10 Recitations Vinaya, we realize something profound about these core precepts of honesty and harmony. These strict rules against lying, against harsh mockery, against two-tongued gossip, they aren't just arbitrary punishments meant to restrict freedom. They are a sophisticated protective shield. The text even explicitly says that once a dispute is peacefully settled by the community, anyone who tries to reopen it and stir up the drama again is committing an offense. It's all about building this defensive fence around the community so that ultimate spiritual peace actually has the safe space it needs to flourish. So let's quickly summarize the blueprint this text gives us for modern relationship building. First, never lie to save your ego or save face, like that terrified monk Hanta did. Second, actively empower others through soft, respectful words. Always remember the great auspicious black ox. Third, never belittle someone's background or their personal struggles. Fourth, completely reject divisive gossip and always verify truths directly, just like the lion and tiger. And finally, never reopen a dispute once it's been peacefully settled. We're going to leave you with this final thought. The 10 Recitations Vinaya teaches us that our words are quite literally the architecture of our reality. They can drain strength, or they can empower. They can fracture alliances, or they can forge unbreakable trust. So ask yourself, will your words build a pure land, a place of total harmony and strength around you today? Or will they act as the jackal's whisper, quietly tearing it apart? The choice is entirely in how you speak. Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and we really invite you to take a moment and reflect on your own daily communication.